Pastor Mace.
My
What's going on?
my man, 50 grand. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man?
I'm good, man. Can't, well, it's been a crazy week, man. Just lost a dear friend yesterday,
Okay.
so still
Okay.
reeling about that and everything with Ahmaud Aubery. It's been crazy, but otherwise, I'm good, man.
Yeah, man.
Man.
Sorry to hear that, man. And so I, especially under all these circumstances, I appreciate you. You jumping on. I'm sure you're dealing with a lot, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for everyone, good friend of mine, mentor, founder of Epiphany Fellowship in Philly, Stand Up. Philly, I met, Pastor Mace, years ago, and, really connected. His heartbeat is in urban ministry, one of the most well-studied people that you'll ever get a chance to hear. So I'm super excited just to have a dialogue with you and learn from you. First of all, happy Mother's Day to the wife, to Yvette,
Absolutely. And she up there somewhere.
I'm sure. Hope you got all your stuff together.
I know, right?
Right. It's tough, man. I'm wondering, like, man, what do we do? You can't do too much, but we get creative. But so it's been a while since I got to visit you in Philly, man. One of the first things I wanted to ask, just as a Philly guy, like, what are some of your all-time Philly favorite, like, athletes or teams or when you think about, because you are at the heartbeat of it. So from your perspective, what about players, athletes, Philly teams? What would you say?
Well, man, it's crazy because a lot of people think I'm from Philly because I've embedded myself in. But I'm actually a DC dude, so
okay,
I'm born and bred in DC. But I've adopted Philly as a second home. I love Philadelphia. Of course, with the Sixers, just the legacy. Dr. J. You got Allan Iverson. You got Andre. You got so many like legends that came through here. It just doesn't even make sense. I have some dear friends that play for the Eagles, so I do have an affinity towards the Eagles. My boys, I'm hoping my guys don't get mad, in DC, because they think I left them, the Smurf bunch. The Smurf bunch. That was my era.
Right.
Art Monk, Charlie Brown.
Right.
John Riggins, and then DC basketball was.
Yeah, man, I get it.
Yeah.
We had Wes Unseld. My dad, Wes Unseld, was from right down the street from me. Who was actually working with the Bullets. Ended up being a GM for a while there. But we got some Bullets, Earl. We got some, got some history in the DC.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to one of the first things that I was really blessed to witness, and for you hosted years ago. Our whole Fizzle platform really began with this thing that we did called Father Knows Best. And at the very beginning, we did workshops really trying to encourage and build the relationships between fathers and men with their young men. And one of the things that came from that, when you really talked about this idea of manhood, and it seems to me, and I want you to get your take on this, like this idea of manhood. You have a book called Manhood Restored. This idea of manhood, sexuality, it seems to be becoming more and more confusing, to society, as we talk about what is it to be a young man. What is it? Well, I often talk to my son about what's cool about being a dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if what the question I'm asking, but do you feel like manhood, authentic manhood, or how you define it, and sexuality are becoming more confusing?
Oh, absolutely. I think that one of the things that just in general, we talk about the idea of what's called human dignity. Every human being, no matter who you are, having dignity, right? So, God makes everyone in his image. And so there's a level of everyone it has a level of human dignity. The book of James talks about that reality. You know, Genesis starts with, you know, in the beginning, God made man in his image. And so that imaging, but also that imaging has responsibilities, right?
Gotcha.
So, you know, and so with that imaging have responsibilities. God is because, you know, you and I will believe that God is the manufacturer of all creation. So when a manufacturer manufactures anything, there are certain expectations that come with that product, right? With the product of his creation. And so it's just like, you know, just like here, you know, I got these bookshelves right here. The manufacturer wants you to put them together in a particular way. Now, and there's a guide to it. There's even a guide that says, hey, this is how you put them together. This is how much weight can go on them. You know, this is the weight restriction. You know, this is the purpose of it. This is a picture of what you put on it, what you don't put on it. You know, God's rubric is like that. God's way of doing things is like that. God says, listen, in the scriptures, God says, this is what manhood is. This is what womanhood is. You know, this is what it should look like. This is the functionality of manhood and womanhood. And particularly, you know, we're talking about manhood. And I think what happens many times is we try to redefine manhood, whether it's thug masculinity, you know, whether it's womanizing masculinity or different other things that we would try to create ways to say, man, this is what manhood is. Now, the question is, who does the manufacturer say we are? And let's get back to his original intent. Yeah.
And so that's that's the point, right? Is so many of us have to really think about that. I'm not sure if, you know, and it's, I guess the ministry is about pointing people to not so much about the biological part is important. It is, because it defines that, but it really comes about, like, when you look at the image, it is the character, right? And the responsibilities and the humanity.
Absolutely.
That's how we're reflecting. So that, you know, that I appreciate that kind of illustration and definition, you know, of manhood, because it's really that's the lens, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting. So I ain't trying to do a big plug, but I wrote a book. So in here, I have a chart, right?
Yeah.
So this chart lays out some principles from Genesis in which what makes manhood. So men are supposed to be representatives. They're supposed to have relationships. And they're supposed to have responsibility. And so the whole idea of representative relationship, matter of fact, you endorse it. So relationship responsibility. And so when we talk about representative, we're supposed to represent God, right? Represent God or reflect him, be an image bearer, reflect him. But then we're supposed to have relationship with him, and we're supposed to have healthy relationships with others. That's why God said it's not good the man is alone, right? But then not only that, we give him responsibility. Before Adam created Eve, he gave him a job, right?
Yeah.
And so that means that man is supposed to, when it comes to responsibility, we're supposed to be committed to a level of vision. We're supposed to be committed to mission. And that doesn't mean no one else is. It's just we're supposed to lead the ethic of that. But then also we're supposed to have connectivity, identity, and activity. And so again, one of the things that when we talk about masculinity and manhood, a lot of men aren't, you know, I'm pretty sure because I see pictures of your dad. I met your dad, you know, it's you know, and even with our boy Blake, you know, his strong relationship with it kind of, y'all relationship with your father really mirrors a lot to me. And how close it is. And I'm pretty sure it was a point where you either felt or was told by your dad, you're a man, right?
A
lot of guys never had someone put their hand on their shoulders and said, you're a man, and this is what it is. And so, what do you think is so many of the reasons why men don't have someone that says, I'm putting my hand on your shoulders, man, you're a man now?
Well, I think you said it. It's the model. Where do you learn it from? You know, some of the things, like I have two sons. One's 19, one's 8. The one that's 8 has 4 older sisters over him, right? So a lot of things that he may adopt, sayings, tendencies, I'm fine with saying, hey, man, that's not what a young man does. That's not what a dude does. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, oh, that's me, right? so you know what I mean? So that's me, right?
Right.
I might get flack pushback for saying that, but I'm saying, no, you don't say that. That's not what now that's really where he's interpreting that. He's receiving that, and he's saying now he's got to deal with that. This is what men do. This is what a man does not do. So you got to have like a model for some. I think, you know, me putting my hand on him saying, hey, this is what a man is. But why would he believe what I say? He believes he would believe what I say because he has to see it first.
Right.
And I think that's really where I'm hearing and I'm seeing is that there's this confusion around that. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that answer. You know, when I played, when I got to the league, my faith was very critical because of that, right? It was because I saw a godly man, right? And he wasn't the one to be like, Al, I'm gonna sit you down and say what the scriptures and blah, blah, blah. But it was his model, right? And I think the model is the one thing of godly manhood. It was critical. My spiritual mentorship was important to me, you know. And I would even say a wide majority of NBA players, right, what we know are Black, right? I'm kind of going to somewhere with this.
Yeah.
And in my experience, a wide majority of those players will claim to have a foundation of faith.
Yeah.
You know, the father, the mother, the grandmother, a lot of our players have received that. But it's almost like it doesn't get reinforced when you get to a certain level. And I think that's one of the issues with manhood is what does it look like in the where I can see it in the surroundings and environment that I'm in right now. So I think that's one of the challenges. But speaking of that, you know, at the beginning of one of your books, you talk about, you know, I think it was your late father, and you know how he had a Purple Heart, right? And you know, he living in a Jim Crow era. He honored his country by talking about, I guess, restoration. I want you to, you know, just talk about like where that came from you. This passion came from for you.
Yeah, I guess for me, you know, for the passion for manhood came from, you know, I grew up in DC in the 70s and 80s, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so pre-crack era and during the crack era.
Yeah.
Only about 2 of us on my block had our pops actually at the crib. Now, and in thinking about that, not only just having your pops at the crib, but the question is, next level is, you know, what type of dad are you? You know, are you, you know, so because being home ain't enough, right? So, so I think my passion for it came from seeing the pandemic, and when I first got in ministry, just seeing so many African American men in particular that was dealing with fatherlessness. But Allan, this is interesting. When we first started Epiphany Fellowship, we were multi-ethnic, right? We're more Black now, but we were more multi-ethnic in the beginning. Cross-ethnically, 90% of the guys that I ministered to, their dad was in some way absent in their life, from Blacks to Koreans to whites. And the fatherhood womb was a monster. You know, that whole idea of father. So even talking to guys about God being father, helping them to like them having no natural illustration, you know, because even Hebrews talks about, you know, what good fathers do, you know, and how much more God. But if you don't have that natural father who gives the illustration of the eternal father, then there's a lot more work involved with helping a man frame his mind around fatherhood, which is the first stage of understanding manhood.
Wow. And the thing is, I didn't even know this at the beginning when we came up with Father Knows Best. I had no idea about this 50s show, you know, about a white male with a family. I had no idea. All I knew was I was trying to draw what you just said. I thought it was important to draw the connection between the biological father and the heavenly father, because even though my father is incredible, I try to do the best I can. You know, I told my kids the other day, do stuff because you're trying to honor God the Father, not, you know, not so much just me, because I'm not human. I'm gonna make mistakes. You're gonna catch me. So it's really about, like you said, you know, and so I want to read a Frederick Douglass quote, because I was trying to reference, you know, this is the one I want to get to in a few minutes, right? I don't know if it's backwards, but
yeah.
but you know, Frederick Douglass had a quote I'm gonna read. It said, "Between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, I recognize the widest possible difference."
Yeah.
What does that quote mean to you?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I got that quote from here. If anybody that doesn't have this book, this is like, I don't care what ethnicity you are, this is foundational reading.
So it comes through backwards on the screen. Tell everybody what that book is.
Oh, yeah. This is the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. Unbelievable book. But what he's basically talking about is the way Christianity in the Western world has been branded through slavery and through capitalism, through the way it's treated Black people, and try to give us a Christianity that is not historical Christianity. And so, you know, whether it's talking about painting Jesus white, which impacts how men view Christianity as a mechanism to influence them in manhood. That's why I had a chapter in Manhood Restored talking about Jesus, the ultimate man. And so, but yeah, man, he's talking about the way in which racism in the Western world has been shaped by those who call themselves Christians. And he's saying there's a gap between the Christianity of the Bible and the Christianity of the West.
Yeah, that's deep. And so I think a lot of men, not just Black men, but you said multicultural, I think really have an issue with the authenticity of the Bible and Christ as a man. So speaking of that, I really want to get your thoughts on, you know, Ahmaud or Ahmaud, and it's taken me a while to figure out how to process it, quite honestly.
Makes sense.
Because you want to get all the information, and you don't want to just speak out and have thoughts that are inaccurate, but it's got to be about truth. But there's obviously some open wounds and scabs that keep coming up, right? And we had a long conversation about this. I know you've been dealing with a lot on top of this. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so man, I was looking for something while you was talking, but man, you know, this is my thing with the whole situation. It's interesting that, you know, when you look at this whole situation with Ahmaud Aubery, first off, today is his birthday and Sunday is Mother's Day. Let's just, you know, that's just crazy, right?
Yeah.
You know, then from there, you know, you look at the history of what's been going on. So I'm gonna read something real quick off one of my posts. So we were murdered. Black people were murdered eating Skittles in Florida, sitting in a church in South Carolina, sitting in our car with a girlfriend and young daughter in Minnesota, St. Paul's, eating ice cream in our home in Dallas, playing video games with our special needs nephew in Fort Worth, and now jogging in the street in Georgia. Now, what's crazy is what makes Ahmaud's situation different is he wasn't killed by law enforcement like everybody else was, like Sandra Bland was, like all the different people were, like Trayvon Martin were, Mike Brown. They were killed by law enforcement. McMichael, the father, even though he wasn't law enforcement at this time, he wasn't law enforcement. So what makes this crazy is that my man was killed by non-law enforcement people in a state that promoted, I don't have the book in front of me, slave patrol. Well, yes, I do. It's right here. Slave patrolling back in the day. It's called, because slave patrols ended up becoming police. And so what ended up happening is man, with that whole, in that area, Allan, this is crazy. Do you know the FBI is trained right there in that county? You know,
yeah,
the FBI,
I saw that on your post.
Border Patrol, like, so they're used to people jogging off campus, right? And what's also crazy, man, about the situation, man, is that the guy that was videoing, and that's how God works. God will turn your own weapons on you, because the video, if that video wasn't there, nobody would ever even believe that what happened would happen. They'd have been like, oh, it was self-defense. Another Negro dies in the streets. But what's interesting, the video shows the other guy that was videoing, he was trapping my man so that they would block him in so they could get him. What's crazy about this whole situation is this came out on February 23rd. If the video never came out, this would have been a lynching that basically it'd have been good to do. And so what's wrong with our country is so broken, man. And it's a necessity that believers in Jesus Christ actually get involved with. Jesus said, you tithe mint, cumin, and dill, but you lack the weightier matters of the law: mercy, justice, and faithfulness. And justice, bro, is the ability to apply God's word to making right judgments in life. And so, man, like, we got to do better, bro. We got to do better.
Man, and see, when I was thinking about it, that's really kind of, when you get past the frustration and anger, that's really where I was thinking is like, where are our believers stance in this? How when Jesus went to the temple, there was a righteous anger, right, that came out of that. Where is that in this? Not just people who are of color, but everyone.
Absolutely.
That's really what I feel like your message, and it really stands, is like, the believers should all stand up and be like, this is not right.
Right.
Which when you said the video, so I think even Ivanka Trump even tweeted something that like, it took a video, right, for this to be exposed. And how ironic is it that it's getting exposed, and today is his birthday, and you said Sunday's Mother's Day. Do you believe, because there's, you know, the conflict in Kaepernick kneeling, some people will say, well, you know what, he shouldn't have done it on someone else's dime in a private setting. But if that video hadn't been done, then it wouldn't have exposed this. And some would argue that Cap was justified, right, even though it was on the NFL's dime and other sponsors' dime, because it brought the exposure needed. How do you feel, you know, or do you feel there's a connection there?
What's funny, Allan, you'd have to explain this to me, right? Endorsements, right?
Yeah.
Do y'all have to sign a contract, or is it just understood based on the parameters that they give? Whatever shoes you wear, like now everybody can wear whatever shoes they want to wear, right?
Yeah.
I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
So when I go on the court with a particular shoe that communicates a company's brand,
I
can, on the dime of the NFL, the NBA, whatever, wear another brand in order to communicate that brand, in order to bring attention to it, so that brand can grow. All Kaepernick was doing was kneeling to the brand of justice that this country is built on, that transcends any of our situations, to basically bring attention to an issue. And he didn't say, man, forget y'all. He was peacefully kneeling. He didn't. He not drawing the middle finger. Respectful. He's going out to do his job, so it's not affecting his job performance. You know. And so again, it's a double standard. You let me wear other brands. You let me wear other brands to bring attention to other brands that's not going to invest necessarily money back into the organization that I benefit off of. But if I do something that wasn't during the game, it wasn't during the game. So again, I think there's a double standard in different things that I think, man, the NFL should do a better job. The NFL, we got too many black athletes coming through there, where you don't create an environment to where athletes feel like they can express themselves, because kids are watching our athletes like more than ever, because now, because of sneakerheads, the sneaker game, particularly the way the sneaker game is for NBA right now, young people are attracted. Like sneaker is now a way that people get involved with watching basketball now, right?
Yeah.
And so now all of these guys are now very, very influential, and they're saying, man, we want to be more than just sports athletes. We understand that we can become icons, and that there's responsibilities that come with us being on the field. And so I think that Kaepernick's situation was it was a career lynching. That's what it was.
Yeah,
it was a career lynching.
Well, the thing that I pull from what you said is that there's a brand that we're all representing, and that brand is justice, right? And even in this context, I always like to think of it as we're co-branding with Christ. We have a brand of the gospel who we're really responsible to, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think that's another perspective, because the argument is that had he not done that, well, would there have been a lot of these actions taken by the NFL to invest? Would Jay-Z have done what he done? We don't know, but like it causes a response. And so, I think it'll be an ongoing discussion. I just thought that it's unfortunate, like you said, that this video had to bring attention, to this. And so, you in some of your material, you talk a lot about the Gospels being, the urban ministry, or the ministry in the urban context being extremely important.
Yeah.
And what I like about your approach, brother, is that you first acknowledge that the gospel is available to everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's available to everyone. So it's not like, I'm saying this is important, not just important here. It's the context with which we all need to see it.
Right.
But yours is steered, kind of towards the broken cities. And so just talk about what you see from that perspective, because I'm not sure a lot of people understand the gospel from your perspective in urban city.
Yeah, so let's start off from the biblical framework of the gospel, right, and work our way there. So when we talk about gospel, there's the content of the gospel, and there's the scope of the gospel. Content of the gospel is Jesus Christ, 1 Corinthians 15, 1-3. Christ died on the cross for our sins, was buried, and was raised up on the third day according to the scriptures. That's the content of the gospel. Putting your confidence in what Christ has done for you in order that you may go from spiritual death to spiritual life. That's the content of the gospel. Now, the scope of the gospel is not just how you get saved, it's how the gospel changes everything. So that's Romans 1:16. The gospel is the power of God unto salvation for both the Jew and the Greek. So it's the power of God. In other words, to change things, right? So when we look at urban environments, we see that the gospel isn't just for your soul, it's for the whole person. It speaks to everything in life. God is trying to make whole people, right?
Yeah.
And so whole people is not just your soul, it's also your body, it's also your mind, it's also how you relate to your wife, how you relate as a single person. The gospel influences that. So why does that have to do with inner cities? Because I believe inner cities are basically a microcosm picture, a picture of how we view our greatest values are pressed through urban centers. Urban centers, even before the internet, is where the greatest amount of influence is, and that influence would go out into the suburbs and the rural areas. If you look at New York, if you look at LA, if you look at Philadelphia, if you look at DC, you look at Atlanta, you look at the city's core influence that. Now, when you have a depressed city core, it's a reflection of a lack of care of that particular place that has a lot of attention shined on it. So why do I think it's important? Because a lot of times, particularly in African, Black, and brown communities, we wait to you've been to where we do ministry, we wait till the property value drops extremely low, go in, grab it, and then push them out, and then make sure they're redlined out of getting loans, and then now we come in and gentrify the neighborhood. We got jogging now, we got coffee shops and good grocery stores. but what happened to valuing the people that was already there, that was a part of a system to basically build wealth on the backs of the broken? And the Bible says, man, I'm gonna read this verse. This verse is crazy than a mug, Allan. I read this verse. I didn't believe this. I read this one time, and this unbelieving dude said, "Where's that in the Bible?" But listen to this verse, crazy verse, and that's around it. It says it's in Isaiah 10, verse 1 and 2. It says, "Woe to those enacting crooked statutes and writing oppressive laws to keep the poor from getting a fair trial."
Wow.
"And to deprave the needy among my people of justice, so that widows can be their spoil and they can plunder the fatherless."
Wow.
Oh, that's in the Bible, you know. And so
where is that again? What scripture was
that's
that?
what I told you. It's Isaiah 10 verses 1 and 2.
Wow.
And so Isaiah 10, 1 and 2, and God even was concerned about people using their power rightly, right? What the church should be doing is helping people, helping culture, right, to view and utilize its power rightly. That's so important, because now what can we do with that? Practically what the gospel do in these urban areas. Like our church, we're in the middle of buying a 133,000 square foot building, and it's a school. And what we're doing with that is we're turning it into, we're reopening the school. We're doing a daycare center, because there's no grocery stores in that area, and it's a food desert. We're trying to get healthy food into that community through starting a grocery store. We're trying to build income generating ministries through a beauty supply store. Beauty supply stores make millions of dollars off the backs of Black people. So what we're going to do, we're going to take that business model back, and we're going to reinvest that into the community, and help developing businesses. We're doing a multimedia a syndicate around there, where we're basically trying to help kids to learn how to do studio engineering, how to run all types of different types of media, and guess what we're going to be doing? Of course, we're going to be doing all that, but we're going to be sharing the gospel with them. We're going to be helping them build families, and we want, in our school, we want 50% African American male teachers to be at that school. So, and what we want that to do is we want that to be a model in the urban core, so that model can influence other nonprofits and churches to stop. Protesting is great. I think we need those who are protesting, but we also need to put our hand to the plow and get some work done in the community and stop waiting for people to do it for us. We got to stop waiting for people to do it for us, and by God's grace, be empowered to do it for ourselves, and then they'll catch on the back end and help invest in it, man.
That's powerful, because you're right. Once, it's almost like the value is being diminished and decreased by limiting resources, but from within, you increase the value back. And then people will come back and invest in you, because they will see more value in what you're doing. And I think now, it's powerful to hear that, because now there's going to be, I think, more opportunities to create that, because everybody's shut down. You have digital media that's going to increase. You're going to have all these things that are going to come up. You answered a great question, my man Kamal answered. How can we change something that people don't have anymore? And I think you basically, you answered that question by pulling together, you know what I mean? And someone talked about holistic sustainability, and help is needed. And I mean, you got to train. I'm gonna hit you with something.
Yeah.
All right, guys. All right, woke church. I don't know if it comes backwards, right? Woke church, powerful. Now there's a chart in here. We got it. Look, you got to. I'm gonna put you on the spot. We got to do a workshop on this page alone, right?
Okay.
Because man, the Venn diagram. There's a Venn diagram here, and I think it's kind of going over my head a little bit, but I understand, the context of where it's going. But just, if you could, in a nutshell, explain this diagram and about what you're trying to bring across. And it's a powerful illustration, because I'm a visual learner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah. James McDonald, what's up, man? I see you on here. Tommy, what's up? But so basically, man, the chart was me trying to help. You know, W.E.B. Du Bois is the father of sociology, right? He had a theory called the double consciousness theory. Okay. You know, Black people understanding who they are in the world and how they're perceived in white culture, but then also self-perception. So I said, that's good, but there's another kind of consciousness or an awakening that needs to happen in your life, and that awakening is being awakened to the gospel of Christ. And so what I did was I took those 3 concentric circles, and what I did was I developed a way for us to assess how do you perceive yourself do you perceive yourself only through the eyes of white people as a Black person? Do you perceive yourself only through the way we're supposed to perceive ourselves? Or do you only perceive ourselves through how God perceives us? Or do you utilize all 3 as a way to use that awareness to make the most of your life to impact the issues of racial injustice in our country?
All right. I wish I got this recorded because that's what I needed to. So, you know, because the thing is, what I think that God has done, even with Fizzle, has allowed us to kind of think about principles that allow us to see from the right perspective. Yeah. You know, and I think that's the most important thing that I kind of go back to is we have to have a perspective that's healthy, that's true. And I think that's why I like this diagram. But man, I really appreciate this conversation, Doc. I mean, I know we could go on and on. The one thing I would love for you to take is when you look at faith and integrity and sacrifice, leadership and legacy, everything we've talked about and that I've known you to come out, it encompasses all of them. But if you had to kind of, you know, really hit on one, you don't have to, but if you kind of had to touch on, what would you say from your journey, your perspective, your story, which one of those 5 fundamentals really sticks out to you?
Legacy, because for me, legacy encompasses all of it. To me, legacy is, what are you leaving behind? And what are you see, as a Christian, we think of legacy 2 ways. We think of legacy and what are we leaving behind, but what treasures are we building eternally? Right? And so, you know, in other words, everything that you leave behind, God may not thumb up. So I want God to be proud of what I leave behind, but also what I'm investing in the kingdom for his glory and for rewards, so that I can get a crown of life, but then throw it at Jesus' feet when everything is over, man. So legacy is huge to me, man. Legacy. Yeah,
that's so powerful. Well, man, look, man, I love you, man. I appreciate you, man. You know, and,
likewise, man.
Yeah, I do, and I'm excited to hear everything you're doing. We'll follow up because I definitely want to build with you with Fizzle and the project, and anything we can kind of do together to just enhance what you're doing, you know, in the city and whatever. So, appreciate you, man.
Love you. Tell everybody we said what's up, and hopefully when this pandemic is over, man, we can partner on some great stuff and impact some lives, man.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Enjoy the weekend again. Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah. Tell wifey I said happy Mother's Day as well, man. Blessings to you.
Okay. Blessings.
All right.